Run through. Welcome to the Jamly Chick season 2. We have Marc Brownstein with us tonight, Brownie from the Disco Biscuits, also DJ Brownie and Tractor Beam and
Yeah,
the Brownstein Family Band and
there's
what
so many
other
more.
so
I,
many. Yeah, just
I keep
ama
joking. I keep joking. I don't want to get all the people who are in all of those different bands on edge, but I'm like almost at the point in my life where I'm gonna just smush them all together into one rotating cast and put a name on it. In that name, when you're a bass player, has already been developed. It's not something that I'm doing from the place of ego, but more from out of the reverence for those who came before me. But Phil and Friends, O'Teal and Friends, that's just what the bass players band becomes. So Brownie and Friends, it's the same model. It's just like you
I love
you
it.
change out who the people are. It could be the Electron band, it could be the Conspirator band, it could be Family band, it could be Star Kitchen, but it's a lot of different brands. And I built up a lot of those brands actually. But actually, I think the number one brand that we built up over those years was just Brownie.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that wasn't intentional. That's just my name, but it like eventually your name becomes a brand
Exactly. And you have
if
done a
it's
lot
used
of work
enough.
for years and years. I was talking about it with Jason. You are the founder of Headcount, which is,
Yeah,
getting people over the age of 18. Is it now 21 or just 18
18.
registered to vote? And which is super duper important. I'm all about that. And, seeing that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So, it's more than you do a lot of things and you've done a lot of things for years. And what year did Disco Biscuits start?
We formed in 1995 over July 4th weekend. But we had already been like a band for like the previous year, and we kept changing our name, and nothing was really sticking. And then I quit the band. Actually, I wanted to go see Fish at Sugarbush that weekend, and we had a little fight, and I just was like, "Oh, I'm out of here. Fuck you." That was like the first of many times I quit the band, and you know, so like literally on day one, I missed the first show. But I was at Fish and Sugarbush in '95, and that was fucking great too. That was like, that was a good thing to take the weekend off. Or I probably should have just been, hey guys, like I'm gonna take the weekend off. But we had a gig, and I just didn't want to miss it. There was this girl, and like it was just so stupid. It's such a stupid thing that I did. Like looking back, like I could not be more immature. But great shows.
Hey, well,
Really,
that
they're really
answers
great
one of the
shows.
questions.
But
Like
not further.
looking back over that answers one of the questions. Like looking back over all those years, like I guess that's one of your big, huge regret moments. And would this band go on? And it did. And it's that's the magic of y'all's music and what you do. And so, uh,
Yeah,
so I'm glad you came
I have
back.
a couple regret moments, you know what I mean? But like all of my regret moments, I feel like everything had to happen. Like for instance, this week I was doing some cameos in my time off, and somebody hit me up and was like, "Hey, I want to have you do a cameo for my friends who are a Biscuits couple. They met at a Biscuit show, and they have, married and have a kid and everything." And then he was like, "Actually, it wasn't even a Biscuit show. It was a Triscuit show. It was when you were fired from the band because I had quit in the beginning of the year 2000. I took 6 months off from the band. I quit the band, and then I pretended like I didn't quit the band, and then the end of the tour happened, and those guys were just like, dude, get out of here." But then after
Get
six
out of
months, they're like, get on it. After 6 months, they brought me back into the band, and they had a hard time finding somebody that like. It's easy to find a bass player, but I guess it's more than just being a bass player. For each of the members of the Biscuits, bring more to the table than just like the instrument that they play. And so, luckily, because I especially at the time was not the most virtuosic bass player, and hadn't really put the hours in. I was still in college, and or at least a couple of years after college. But like it was still early in my career, and I was still learning a lot about how to play the instrument. And um, so luckily there was something more that's harder to define that I was bringing to the band that they needed me to come back in, because the guy they replaced me with was a significantly more talented, like technical bass player than I was, but they still felt like there was something lacking there
I
when
think
we
that's part of the
made that change.
community that y'all have built also, like y'all have built a beautiful community and have so many things that y'all do together and what is it like festivals and just the community that you have is absolutely amazing. And so that's something that just doesn't come with every band whatsoever. There are lots of bands, but there is not the community that y'all have
You gotta have
and
a
that y'all
certain
have
type of
brought.
magic to make it work, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think that if you look at bands across the board, especially in the last like 20 years where there's social media and like um a lot of the connection happens online, there's always one person in the band that has kind of a bigger role in terms of building the community, having relationships with the fans. Like, um, Joel and Humphreys is kind of that guy. And, you know, I think like if you were to go one by one across every band, there's always one guy that's kind of doing the lead. Al and Mo is kind of that guy. And,
I would say
you know,
Peter and Goose is kind of that guy.
Peter, yeah,
He's the
Peter and
one
Goose is
who's,
out there in the
yeah,
crowd dancing around, meeting people, hanging out. Yeah, I mean Rick's quiet,
yeah,
a very quiet guy, and I've spent a lot of time with him. Like during the pandemic, we spent 8 days together down on the beach in Mexico. Randomly, I was visiting a friend in Mexico. I had just gotten COVID. It was like December of 2020, I finally got COVID, and then I was like, "Oh, I got COVID. I'm gonna fucking." My family didn't get it; they were all home. I'm like, "Fuck it, I'm going to Mexico." So I went to Mexico to
nice.
Tulum, and the place that I was staying at, my friend was, and now he's our manager, but at the time, he was just a close friend of mine, and he's Goose's manager. And Rick was there for the whole time I was there, the 8 days, so we got to hang out a lot, and I like him a lot. He's such a reserved, quiet, like serious, like smart, like um dedicated, interesting guy. But also he has like a lot of he's very respectful, and like he is very curious and inquisitive. Like he asked me a lot of questions about being in a
Yes.
band, and like band like how bands like uh internally are. What's funny actually now, because this is the first time I'm actually putting it together. He was asking me questions about like the band dynamics, and like and I remember being like, huh, I wonder like what he's even like referring to. But like he was talking about like dynamics between band members, and since that time they've had multiple band member changes. And so
Yes.
um
I
you
think that's
can
been a
see.
theme amongst a lot of jam bands.
Yeah,
No,
well, it's just
no.
kind of like it's contagious, like drummer changes are contagious, and it's not just jam bands. Like it's across every kind of band
Right.
this year. Like there's like a list of like 25 drummers that have been changed out this year. I don't
Right.
know what it is. I did read online somewhere that we're nearing the end of a 9 year like cosmic cycle or something. So maybe that cycle has something to do with like cleaning out like all of the toxic relationships and starting fresh and starting new. And I do think
Definitely.
I'm not one to speak for other bands, but like I know for us definitely there was some of that, like kind of we had come to the end of a cycle. It felt like had reached the end of this cycle, and it was um a a sort of like a turning point somehow. It felt like a natural place to reassess like the state of the internal dynamics of the band. And and when John and Aaron and I sat down and had a serious conversation about some of the things that had been happening internally behind closed doors. It, we determined very quickly that, like, we're been in the band for 30 years. We are getting older. And you get to a certain point in your life where, where you say, okay, well, there's time starts to feel urgent almost, like, there's an urgency around time, and you don't want to like waste any time. And I think for us that was it. It felt like we were spinning our wheels a little bit, like it's shameful, I know, shamefully, or it's a shame in a way that we had hit this peak musically. Like we had been just like, everybody was talking about how great everything was going. And it's funny because when Goose made their drummer change, they had just played Hampton. Like, and people were like, how can they be making a band change after 10 years? This is insane. I remember having that thought myself, like, this is insane. They're changing out a band member right as the band has exploded into arenas. Well, there must be something behind that, obviously. I'm not like, and then I think more than anything, just seeing the four of them together, playing with Cotter and Peter and Rick, and spending a whole night on stage with them and a whole day in rehearsals with them, and watching the way that the band interacted with each other was almost inspiring for me a little bit, because it was a very difficult decision that they had to make, but you can see clearly on the other side of it that they had made the right decision. They took a lot of heat for it in the first like week, and then then Cotter came out and they put out that recording of them with Cotter, and people were fucking hated it at first. People were like, "This is great job, you fucking ruined your band," because Cotter actually was like more delicate, and there was like a little bit more of like a nuance to his playing. And they had then that one track that was like really, like, I can't remember the name of it, but everybody like started to pick up. It was really mellow, but everybody started to pick up that it was like brilliant. Oh, what was that one called? It was on, they released it as an album, and a lot of people on my Twitter feed were flipping out about this one like very mellow track that was on there. And then little by little, you could just see over the course of the year, you could just see it. You could see it in pictures. You hear it in the music, like, but for sure. But you could just see it being with them, seeing it online, that they have a different dynamic with Cotter that's super positive and warm, and that's it's like really important. Like it's like really important. And so like
it is.
I don't want to say that like seeing Goose did that like had any effect on us doing that, because it didn't really. But in the back of my mind, I knew that these things you can be successful in these kinds of changes. Umphreys, without a hitch, barely anybody noticed. It was like, those guys are the best at HR. Like, they're just so good at HR. It's just like, fuck you, Umphreys, because I know that you're thinking, I know what they're thinking is they're giggling like, the Biscuits, ha 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 ha, I did it again. Like, and it was just like, man, we actually saw how Umphreys made their drummer change, and we actually were like inspired by that. And when I say inspired by that, we were like, this is how we would like to make our change, exactly like Umphreys did. We would like to have an amicable split, which we thought that we would because of what had been expressed to us about how Alan was like feeling about being in the band. Like we had the inkling that he was unhappy, and so we were like, this is how you do things. So we were like, man, we have to do like an amicable split. And that didn't happen. It blew the fuck up in our faces.
Yeah. And relationships are hard. People forget
breakups are hard.
Breakups are hard. People forget that a band is not just a band. There are people involved. There's a relationship. Y'all have been together for 20 years. He was there. And so that's a hard time. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't see, that we don't know. And And
we
I think
can't even
that's the same place
imagine.
that I think that's the same exact place that Goose was at when they had to make the change. And
Hey,
when
anything,
Humphreys,
I mean,
anyone's,
But
and
put
But with
so
Goose,
much time and effort and stuff, so
with Goose, you could kind of get a sense that there was three guys, and then Ben was over here, and he was like, it was the opposite of the Biscuits. He's so outgoing and he's partying and he's like you always see the pictures. It's like and like there's this sort of outgoing sort of gregariousness of his just personality and what musically or otherwise that stuff comes out musically and like with us people could very easily see the same thing. Everybody's been telling us for years that it's like Alan and the three of us. And it's like, if you can see that, everybody can see that. Like, oh, him and I had a fairly great relationship, but he was just different from us from a kind of a different part of the country and like, a different kind of vibe and like, very quiet and at times quiet, at times very loud but at any rate, always like the three of us are just like, we're Penn kids. We're from Northeast, like, Northeast, like
yeah,
rambunctious fraternity kids. Like, we were always like the punk rock kids of the jam band scene or like, the
yeah.
ones that kept fucking around and it's like,
I
we're
mean,
like,
there is a difference, West Coast, East Coast. I mean, rappers. I mean, you see,
we're, exactly.
it's not just like there's always been a
Whereas
difference, West Coast, East Coast.
we're
So
as much influenced by the Beastie Boys as we are by Fish, as or Bad Brains or any of these other things. And so like there's this element, this kind of darker element in our music that comes out from sort of like just like that influence that we have from being I grew up in the city where I'm from New York City, Magnus from Philadelphia, it's like so there's something that comes along with that. And so, for us, that um, in the end, we did it. And now we're like one tour past that. And so many, I just think it's just like been such an interesting experience watching, like clearly we knew people were going to be shocked. Clearly we knew people were going to be upset. And just like watching the process of us just letting the music do the talking and what,
yeah,
building up with Marlon. We don't have an issue with compatibility or chemistry with him. We've all been playing. Those guys have been playing with him for 5 years. I've been playing with him for 10 years. He lives in Philly. Like it was the thing that the Biscuits can do right now that we were not able to do for the last 10 years, really 14 years, is hey guys, like 9 a.m. Like, hey everyone, can you be over at my place at 11 a.m.? I want to like run through some stuff with you today. Like emergency calling of practice, and then all of a sudden all four of us are at Aaron's place and in an hour later. And
and that's
that's the kind of
important.
thing.
that's great.
It's just it's a it's hard, like I saw Cloud Cord was doing a interview or something and he was talking about how at the beginning of Revolution in Motion. Actually, it wasn't an interview. It was a private video that they sent to the band for our 30th anniversary that our friends compiled for us. But in it, Cloud Court said that at the beginning of the Revolution in Motion sessions, and I like forgot this, but it's so fucking cool. But it's very telling. He came to Philly to start the recording sessions with us. And me and Aaron and John went into the basement of John's house, which is a studio, and we set up in the studio. And Cloud Cord brought hours and hours and hours of house music beats with him, and he DJ'd beats, and we jammed on top of it for 3 hours. And he was like, I have 3 hours of you guys improvising on the top of me DJing, and I have it all. There's so much music nobody's ever heard, and one day we'll get it out there. But that was like that's just like how it was. having Marlon in town and being able to just throw like a, never mind that he's the just the most, God, is he swanky. He's the most
He's
unbelievable drummer. He's my favorite.
he's a super awesome.
I've played
He's
with
really cool.
25 drummers.
He's a really awesome drummer. I've been checking out his stuff, obviously, and as bands change, you check things out. And he was like big in the R&B scene. So like I think the jam world's gonna take a second to swallow that, and that as they always do,
Get right in.
everything takes always a second, and
Well,
just like it did with Cotter and stuff. And
yeah, it did take a little second with Connor. The thing about
yeah,
Marlon though is Marlon also he he plays like electronic music professionally. Like he works in Atlantic City playing house music with house music DJs inside of like clubs and the casinos and stuff. And it's like not something that like they don't like they're not like famous DJs, they're just like casino DJs, right? And so it's not like on his like pay, it's not something that he like promotes about himself. For the last 8 years he like goes into the casinos and plays these gigs when he's not out on tour with Lauryn Hill or John Legend or Keshe or pop. So he does pop. Like now he's kind of in a K-pop leaning pop act. And he's obviously done a bunch of hip hop, French Montana, and a bunch of R&B, and also Star Kitchen, funk and like rock and stuff. I think his heart leans rock a little bit, like and he loves the electronic music. But for the Biscuits, he it's funny because people would be like, "Well, is he a Biscuits fan?" And it's like, well, he's fast becoming a Biscuits fan. Like today,
right.
we learned Hope today. This morning we got in the studio. We were learning Hope and House Dog Party Favor. And after we played Hope, he was like, "This is gonna be my favorite song to play right now." And like every like 4 songs, he says that. Like Mirrors was his favorite song before that, and Necromancer was his favorite song before that. And he keeps discovering. I'm like, Marlon, there's 200 songs, and like they're all pretty good in one way or another. You're gonna just keep discovering songs. And
You will.
it's funny because he was like, "I thought you guys were like mostly four on the floor, but like what I'm discovering is there's like 100 rock songs and like jam. There's this whole jam band body of music that's not based off of electronic music that I'm like, he really likes. He's like digging into it. Little Shimmy and Conga Line and Magellan and Jigsaw Earth and like all these classic songs, I Man and Helicopters, which became a four on the floor song over the last like 10 years, but Marlon's taking it back to like the original beat. Same with I Man. And so like he's also playing four on the floor in the middle of it. He's like slipping in and out of it, which is actually what was like the magic of the Biscuits for me in the early years. Was not like that we were playing electronic music with instruments, which was interesting and cool and different and unique at the time. Nobody had ever done it before, but it was for me what was so magical about it was. Are you guys familiar with Andy Gadiel from Andy Gadiel's Fish Page? He's the CEO of Jambase now, but he had a Fish Page back in the day called Andy Gadiel's Fish Page. And he had this saying back in the day. He would say that the Biscuits would say they would go out of the techno and into the jam, and that was like his way of describing like how our jams would end. Like these songs like Basis for a Day or Crickets or Munchkins Invasions, we would get into these like techno jams, and then as we like got into the peak, it would shift over back into like jam band territory, into like a blissy peak. And it was for me, the dichotomy between playing that electronic jam, but shifting slowly back, molding back into like a jam band rock peak at the peak, that was so beautiful. And also at the beginning of the jams, we were like playing like jam band style, and then we would slowly morph into it as the jam went on. As the band like evolved, we like kind of fell more into just kind of landing in the four on the floor at the beginning of a jam and riding it through the whole entire peak, which is a different way of doing it, and one's not better than the other. Outside of just variety in the style of music that's happening, for me, the there was a lack of variety that I was missing these other beats that are like we're starting to kind of get back into playing those songs a little bit more. I don't want to like scare our fans. Like our intention is to keep the band as close to what it was as we can, while also reintroducing some of the elements from our band that have been fallen by the wayside because they were such an important part of the soul, and foundation of the Disco Biscuits, and we had, I think like we just, it just didn't sound, um it didn't sound exactly, I guess, the way we wanted it to sound. I guess I don't know. Like I'm kind of just like off the cuff. Like
Yeah.
we had just like kind of it dropped off. I don't know why it dropped off, but we've started to play these songs again with Marlon, a lot of them, and there's a real excitement around playing Magellan and Jigsaw Earth that I wasn't feeling, in the last year or two. And then there's like Marlon will come off stage and he'll be like, yeah, like I felt like I was going like digging in on Sammy's, our first drummer, Sammy. He's like, I feel like I was digging in on Sammy's vibes like for that first half of the set, but then I was like looked up at the crowd and I'm like, all right, it's time to kick into the Alan kind of vibe. And I kicked up and like we jammed into like that more modern, like Alan, like Un's vibe. And then I just like took that out to the top and I was just like, I love him talking about like how
Awesome.
he's like trying to slip in and out of like the different eras, while at the same time we'll
Doing
be
his own thing.
creating what this era is all about, but paying homage to like what the band sounds like. We don't want to change how the band sounds, even though I know like
So we're on
a lot of,
Biscuits 3.0 right now because you had Biscuits 1.0 with, the
yeah,
first drummer and
yeah,
then
Sammy 1.0,
yeah, then Biscuits,
Alan 2.0.
yeah, 2.0. Now we're on Biscuits 3.0.
Some people argue that Alan's era had at least two of their own levels. Like Alan could have been 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0, and we could be on 5.0 because we played hard for 5 years, then took 9 years off, then came back hard for
But we
five
can't
years.
do that
So
much explaining to other people, so we'll just do
one, two, and three.
we'll just do one, two, three.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
that's a
We
lot of
have the
explaining. Like when people come into the jam band scene, like it's already a lot of explaining anyway. But could you
There's too
imagine?
much.
Like could you imagine?
Yeah.
We
Like,
call it
well, this, like.
we call it jam splaining.
Mansplaining. That's
Jam
awesome.
splaining.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's well, that is it's awesome to hear, and it's awesome to hear like, everything going on, seeing how like y'all envision it. And so that way when fans are going, coming up to shows and stuff that they know like kind of what to expect. And that's a beautiful thing to know, saying like this is kind of where we're leading, this is where we're going with this. And it's cool to
But we
see.
don't know where we're going with it. I want to just make sure that everybody knows that.
Yeah.
If we knew where we were going with
Well,
it,
that's
then we
why it's
wouldn't be the
biscuit.
Disco Biscuits,
That's
right?
why it's Biscuits 3.0 right now, because we don't know where it's going. It's just somewhere in three.
We never know where it's going. You know what I mean? We've never known where it's going in all of our years. Especially now, we don't know where it's going, which I like a lot. Like there's especially like a new kind of freedom in the jams that like the jams truly can lead anywhere because Marlon doesn't have a preconceived notion of how a jam is supposed to sound or what it's supposed to do throughout the course of it. So we might, do 3 or 4 different rhythms and things before we get to an end of the jam, which I love, which reminds me a lot of Fish, my favorite band. That's never stopped being a thing about them, where it's like they could start Tweezer and, before the end of the Tweezer jam, they're in like a double time jam that sounds more like the peak of Hood. And like, then they'll just like drop back down into Tweezer, like on a dime, which they did in SPAC this summer. I listened back to it on the tape and couldn't figure out, like in the show, like sometimes you'll be like, whoa, what just happened? But then
Right.
you'll listen back and you can hear what the signal was. But
Yeah.
even like listening back, I couldn't, I was so, I guess they practiced it backstage. I don't know what they did, but they did the way that they dropped out of a very quite fast jam and slowed it down on a dime back into the tweezer, like head of the tweezer. It was really, really magical, impressive, like, like sort of magician like telepathic fish like experience. As a jam band, you're always hoping for moments like that where it's like, how did that happen? There's like a moment in the other one from that's it for the other ones from Red Rocks on 7/8/78. So July 8th, 1978. And they're just like jamming along, jamming along, jamming along. And then like you can hear it winding up, like the way that Jerry's like playing this line, he's like winding up and they like wind up. And then at like the end of this lick, Jerry and Phil both hit an F sharp is the note that they hit. They hit the nine. It's like the nine of the chord. It's an E chord, the jam of the other ones. And they're jamming, jamming, jamming. And then they go up a whole step, both hit it and like stop playing for like a bar where it's like da 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 da, and they do it together. And then they dun dun da 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 da, and it's just like, how did that happen? I mean, this happened 47 years ago, and I am still confused and blown away about this one little micro moment from like one random jam from one random Grateful Dead show, 47 years ago. But it's like those are the moments, the in between moments where it's just like, well, the magic is in the in betweens.
That's it. That's the beauty of it, man.
Man, I'm sending you and Jason on vacation together.
I'm down.
You
No,
know?
yeah, no, it's so true. Like just the moments, but also like some moments
I mean,
that
that's why you go to these. That's what drew me into the jam scene. It's just the moments like that and the peaks, the highest of the highs, and then you get, into these dark, sessions, that become, just driving and then build again and then just drop back into a soft ending. You know what I mean? It's just.
I do know what you mean. I love the soft ending. Barbara always would say that it's like he's trying to, at the end of something where the soft ending's coming, he's trying to emulate like what the vibe of being on a roller coaster is like, where you're like starting up, like the tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
tick, that's like the beginning of the song, the intro, and then it like just falls off, right? And you go through all of the different like things, and then like as you're like the roller coaster's over and you're like coming around, and it's like.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it comes in like that, and as you come in and it stops, that soft ending right there is like the end of Iman or the end of Spacebird or the end of a C to B. We always considered that moment the roller coaster pulling into
how do
back
y'all
into the platform.
speaking of that, how do y'all know? Because you're a bassist, Jason, you're a drummer. Like, how do y'all know? How do you, being an improv band, and most of it being improv, like, yeah, you practice parts of it, but a lot of parts aren't practiced. Like, how do y'all just look at
A
each
lot of
other?
listening.
How do you know?
How do you know? Like, like, is it just that
Well,
relationship?
I'll tell you how you know. Um, well, it's a language, and um, I don't consider myself all of these years into it. I'm not even really fluent in it, um, but I'm getting there. It's like I'm like somebody from another country that's speaking English, and it's not really broken English, but like every now and then there's a couple words where you're like, oh, that guy's not from here, and there's still like an accent that lingering that you can hear, but you can hear that he's lived here for a really, really long time, and you're like, wow, this guy's English is pretty solid. Almost can't detect his accent, but that little trip up there made me think, oh, there is an accent. I wonder where this guy is from, right? So that's how I consider myself as a musician. I can catch most of everything, but every now and then something will happen where I'm like, wow, there's like, it happens in language too. I was watching Bill Maher the other day, and it was actually Bill Maher and Bill Burr. It was on his like podcast, and I was watching it for Bill Burr because I'm a big fan of Bill Burr. I also like Bill Maher, but Bill Burr makes me laugh really, really hard. And Bill Maher in the middle of it like used some like French phrase, and Bill Burr was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I don't know what that means," And I didn't know what it meant either. And that is like I'm not really even fluent in English. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
I speak conversational English really well. I know a lot of things that probably a lot of people don't know, having been, educated at an elite college, but also there's just so much information in the world to take in. And, that is like anybody really fluent. And that's the way it is with music. It's like you'll get up there and it's like, Isaiah Sharkey, who's like plays with Sput and like Ghost Note, I think he's in, but like he's in the jam band adjacent scene of like unbelievable jazz, funk, R&B musicians that are like virtuosic, and most of them came out of Berkeley. And Marlon knows them all. Like every time we go out, like and we're at a festival, I see Marlon talking to all these dudes that I like really look up to, and he's just like, "Spud, what up?" And they're like, "Marlon," and I'm just, but like, every now and then you'll get on stage with those guys. One night, like Sput and Isaiah Sharkey. Sput is the drummer of Ghost Note and also like the drummer of Toto. He's just like he's just such an amazing, incredible musician. Robert Sput Seawright, and he and this guy Isaiah Sharkey were suddenly on stage with me, and I think it was like an Electron show at like some festival a bunch of years ago. And Electron is if you don't Electron, it's me and Tommy Hamilton from J-Rad, Aaron from the Biscuits, and Mike Greenfield from Lotus on drums. And we've been doing this for 25 years together. It's a side project we do. And suddenly Sput and Isaiah Sharkey are on stage, and they're like busting like jazz licks, right? And it's like I did study jazz. Magner is a jazz person, he's a jazz pianist, and I did go to jazz school for a year. But like, there's a level of jazz musician out there where like I'm like they're so high up in the notes of the chord, the extensions of the chord, that I'm like, I don't know what this is that they're doing right now. I'm having a hard time centering my bass around what they're doing. And so that's like Bill Burr sitting with Bill Maher and him dropping like French phrases that he learned in academia, and Bill Burr being like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He did it like 3 times. Yeah. He was like, "There you go again, using big words. Stop with the big words. Just talk in words that everybody can understand." And Bill Maher goes, "I will not be the bad guy for knowing things." Right? But it's like music, language. So that's the answer to your question. Like, how do we know how to do it? Like, you could put any group of professional musicians together that haven't really played together, supposing that they're at least familiar with the feel and style and genre that each of them come from, and they'll just be able to communicate with each other. Now, there's caveats here. Like, there are some musicians that you think of like as absolute geniuses, because they are geniuses and virtuosic at what they do, but they can't change. Like, I've played with guys in the jam band scene who are like bluegrass guys, who are virtuosic bluegrass guys, but you'll bring them into like a more electronic setting where we're playing house music, and some of the string cheese dudes play house music, and that's what they do on the side. Some of the string cheese dudes are like country, like
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
bluegrass music guys, and some are like halfway in between. But like there's a lot of musicians out there who are so unbelievable, but then you bring them into like what you do, and it's hard. Like Stan Moore is like, he's just so incredible. Like what an incredible drummer, and like the way that he plays that New Orleans style. But he sat in with the Biscuits once, and we kind of have to adapt to his style because that is what he does. Whereas somebody like Marlon is like, he's excessively versatile of a drummer. He can fit in to
They can be the chameleon.
he sat in with Humphreys in this summer. Like I kind of reached out to Humphreys and was like, "Hey, Marlon wants to try out." Right after Chris, they already had Scotty Zwang like teed up to sit in to like take over temporarily with them, but they brought Marlon out to like sit in with them and just like see how it went. And I listened to the recording of it, and I was like, "Good God!" They played Miss Tingle Overture and Plunger, and the Plunger was just like he was crushing it. It's like heavy metal, and like you said. Well, I think it'll take a little people time to like adjust to having an R&B guy, but that's up here.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not here.
Exactly.
It's like
Well, I mean,
here a little bit and
it's
here a
what it
little
is
bit.
it's here because even I came into the scene funny embarrassing story. We were at Warren Haynes Christmas Jam, and and we were like front and center, and I've never been to a Fish show, and Trey Anastasio band is up there, and Trey Anastasio just starts ripping it. And I look at Jason and I'm like, who is this guy? And Jason was like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was all into the electronic world and all that. And so I did know who the Biscuits were because, y'all were more electronic, like house music and stuff. And so
Yeah,
that was so coming into the whole scene. It's just it's a different thing. And so knowing,
I love it.
yeah,
From
bringing
not knowing Trey to being the Jamily chick.
I know, right? Jason gets like so embarrassed when I tell that story. I'm like, dude, it's the truth. I mean, it's just the way it is, and so
Oh,
it's
that's
just the
great.
way it is. but um, but yeah, like, but it hurt my heart not to tell the truth when when Ben was gone, when Jeff was gone. It hurt my heart, from Goose and stuff because I knew them in the beginning and everything. But then now that that Cotter's in there, it's just a whole different jam. It's a whole awesome thing. They're just the way that they're syncing, and it took a little bit. I mean, it didn't just come right off the cuff, but it took a little bit, and it's a beautiful thing. So I think that you have to do what's right for your own personal, we all have to do what's right for at what we know and where we know that where your band's going and stuff. So I think that, and I think Marlon's awesome. I've checked it.
Yeah,
I've seen his stuff. I've seen his stuff. I think he's pretty cool. So
Thank you. I
he's
think
amazing.
I think it's a great fit. I think it's going to be. I'm excited to see where it goes.
We, when the Disco Biscuits make, big decisions, like it's always in the interest of preservation of the band's health for the long term. It's like we wouldn't make a move like this at this point in our career if we weren't like feeling really good about like where we were, what we had, and wanted to like improve the dynamics of the band on stage and off stage so that it could be in a better situation for the fans. That's really ultimately what it is. Not knowing, I know that Alan is a fan favorite member of the band, and I feel like that's it. This doesn't preclude that from being a continued reality. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody is a fan of Alan. Keep being a fan of Alan. He's not going anywhere. He's playing at Resonance with Hive Mind, and he's playing in like Cervantes. He's like, Alan's not going anywhere. Please support Alan. I love
right.
him, and support the Biscuits, and like love us, please. Love
Yeah,
us too. And
Yeah.
we're just trying to spread joy.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
that's the bottom line in the community is love, you know? I mean, that's
That's
what,
why we're doing it. We do this because it's joyful. It's all about like spreading joy. I don't know if I ever even got to finish the one little tidbit that I was saying earlier about how when I got kicked out of the band in the year 2000, um, like I, what I want to say is I'm a big believer of, I think about the butterfly effect all of the time. I think about how tiny things that happen lead to other things invariably in the world. I got kicked out of the band. There was a show that I wasn't at that two people met at, got married, had kids, and like would that whole family now might not have existed if I hadn't taken too many drugs in Las Vegas in October of 1999, quit the band in Mississippi, and then gotten fired after New Year's. Like that series of events led
Look at
to
that
these
optimism.
people meeting, having kids, and like, what if one of those kids becomes president? What if one of those kids invents like something that, like cures cancer, or God forbid becomes a mass murderer. But like,
yeah.
like you never know like what is going to come out of this thing that one night I took too many drugs,
Let's
fucked
just hope
up.
and pray, like not a mass
It's
murder
the
on
good.
that
Yeah, no,
one. Like
no, no.
let the good butterfly
You never
effect.
know.
You never
Well, but
know.
you never
You
know. It's
never
like
know. You never know.
I'm sure that these people seem like really nice people and like they're raising really good kids, like really smart, like cool kids. But like my point being like everything that happens in life leads to other things, and those other things lead to things
It
past that, and it's
it
just like
does.
this beautiful thing, this beautiful like kind of like flow of energy that's just like people banging into each other, and things being born out of it.
Yes. And we
Oh, yeah.
never
God knows the Disco Biscuits, all four of our parents had to like something had to happen in order for all of this to happen. And so
Right?
it's wild. Yeah, so
yes.
I think about that a lot, and just kind of like when I'm going through big changes in my life, like I am now in multiple parts of my life, multiple aspects of my life. I'm going through gigantic personal changes, professional changes, and I just every day I'm thinking about like how the future is going to
Yes.
be affected, the ripple effect of like all of the different things, and especially when you're in a band and like you're creating events, and like there's just so much comes out of it. I wish there was a way to chronicle how many people have met at biscuit shows, gotten married, and had kids. I would love to like know
Oh, that'd be
like
fun. Yeah.
how many kids came out of the four of us deciding to play
Right?
play silly long songs with lots of time changes and electronic
That would
beats.
definitely be very interesting because I know lots of people put that online, like, this baby made to this song, like exactly what show and everything. Like that would be a fun thing to chronicleize that. That would be awesome. Let's start that up. But
Yeah, I want to know.
that's
I want to see. I mean, because that's like what it's really all about. It's about the relationships. It's about the community. It's about the things that have been invented, around biscuit shows. Group Me was invented after a biscuit show so that fans could keep in touch with each other at biscuit show. Like, they were there and they were like, couldn't get in touch with each other. They went back to the hotel. They had the idea for Group Me. They coded it overnight, and the next morning they had an app. And then a couple months later, they sold it to Skype. So it's like,
that's awesome.
these things, and those guys created this
See,
music
and they say
software
us
called
looks aren't
Splice.
smart.
Head count. Oh, come on, the Wooks are the smartest. Um,
Exactly. I say that all the time.
of course, in order to like the music that these bands are making, you have to have at least some. I mean, you're either really smart or really dumb. I don't think there's not a lot in the middle. And
I
I think
mean,
you all know
I
which
mean, you're
one you
not
are.
lying. I guess when you put it like that, you're not lying at all, for sure. That's the
There's a lot of
truth.
geniuses. We know, like, there's a lot of like just absolute geniuses who are in
Yeah.
like the Fish scene, the Biscuit scene, the Grateful Dead scene. It's just like there's just so many people who have just accomplished so many things, like so many unbelievably accomplished folks out there. So
Yeah.
who love jam bands.
I'll hear the new kids coming in too. It is absolutely insane, like to hear you know, they're like, I'm going to this college and stuff. And you're like, what are you studying? Oh, astrophysics. I was not expecting it. Astrophysics. That is
Oh
super
man,
cool, like really. And
my
I mean,
kid's studying drums.
I,
Fuck.
drums, that's an amazing thing to study too.
That is. It is.
But
He's great too.
there's a lot. I don't even realize it so much. Like Jason's a drummer and it is insane the amount of different types of music and just like you were saying, some musicians can come in and play with certain musicians, other musicians can't do it and you have to flow around that. And it's just the different types. Certain things have certain beats that are just so hard that you can't even get, that it's hard to get. And I'm sure, with Marlon having a hip hop background and stuff, there are going to be a lot of beats that are going to be in there and
Oh,
stuff.
so
Like,
great. We have a lot of
so
hip hop beat songs. Like, we
yeah,
have a lot of
yeah,
songs like Caves in the East and Mirrors and like Rivers. And like, there's some songs that we don't play anymore, like M80 and Killer 11 or I don't even know the name, Killing 11, I think it's called, and Meditation, and then like songs like Memphis and like Home Again, and like there's a ton of songs in that kind of more down tempo vibe that like lean into hip hop feel that knowing how he plays hip hop beats from playing in Star Kitchen with him, that I'm excited to start to continue to dig in because we've now
yeah.
done Rivers and we've done Caves and we've done Mirrors, and
So
it's
y'all
fun.
have definitely decided, this is the drummer going forward, like not just a temporary drummer filling in and stuff. This is who our biscuits, this is the biscuit fam coming in, right?
I mean, I don't know, like I don't know exactly, like I guess the way that we announced it, just like Humphreys, was that we're gonna have Marlon play through the end of the year. Um, and I think just like Humphreys, the intention was always that like that person was going to continue on, but like we're leaving it open just for like just in case it's a disaster or like I don't know. We knew it wouldn't be a disaster. We already know like Marlon is the sweetest guy of all time. I had like a mini panic attack. Actually, I was listening to the set down in the gym, Buffalo set one, set night one, and something happened in the middle of that set that like where I got like kind of a little bit lost from where the rest of the band was. And I got flipped around on a beat, and I had a little bit of a mini panic attack. Like so, it happens from time to time. I get anxiety, and I was just like, I was like just like panicking for a minute. And I went upstairs after the set, and I was trying to describe to Marlon like what happened to me and what I would like the band to be able to do if that ever happens to me or anybody else on stage. And he grabbed my shoulders, and I have to take off after this. But he grabbed my shoulders and he said, "Man, I just want you to know something. I love you so much. You're like my brother, okay? And I know that you get anxiety, and I know how you are. Like, I know, like, we know each other very well and are very close. So I just want you to know that I don't just think of myself as the drummer here at the Disco Biscuits. I kind of think of myself also as like your your emotional what's it called? The emotional security
Emotional
and
support or is this
yeah,
support
emotional
dog?
support.
Support
He was
dog.
like, yeah, he was like,
Emotional
I
support dog.
want you to think of me as your emotional support animal. I'm like here to support you. I don't even have. I'm not even
That's
like an
awesome.
emotional support dog wouldn't be saying anything. Just be there to support the person. I'm here to do that for you. You know, now
That's
like your
important.
friends are here, like everybody's having a good time. Like that's that. Now we move forward. It's ah. He's like, you're
Oh,
good.
party foul.
Yeah, he goes, you're good. You're good, man. So yeah, I mean, like Marlon grabbed me and said some things that every single day since that moment, I've like had a moment during the day where I've thought about. I mean, I was almost like teared up from it because it's just like he's a very people are going to find in time like he's such an unbelievable person, just an incredible human being. He's so caring and like after he came to practice a bunch of like weeks ago and he was like, hey, can we play Reactor tonight? I didn't even know he had ever heard of the song Reactor. And I was like, oh, well, we've got this list, like like you really want to add in Reactor right now for tonight? Like it's a big ask, like we're gonna have to like dig in if you haven't started on it. And he said, well, I was talking to our truck driver and I just like really believe in like just like supporting every single person on the tour and just like being there for like all the different people. And I was talking to our truck driver and he mentioned that, he's coming to the show tonight because there was no drive. It was the first night of a 2-night run. He said he's coming to the show tonight, which the truck driver usually can't come to the show. The truck driver's sleeping until after the show because he's got to go drive.
Right.
So he said he's coming to the show tonight and he just mentioned Reactors, his favorite song. So I feel like this least we could do to give back to him is put the work in and play the Reactor tonight.
That's awesome.
Like, man, just like, I love you. I just love you. He's just such a wonderful, sweet human being. So I'm eager and excited for like people to get to know him on that level because it's just like he's just like a heartwarming, endearing human being. Has like family oriented, like his mom and kids are the two most important things in his life. He said, so to answer your question, because I don't think I'm like authorized to be like, Marlon's our drummer, like this
Right.
is like the
Sorry. So
announcement on
after
the
I asked
gently
that,
check.
I was like,
To
oops,
answer our question,
maybe.
I texted him last week that I was like really grateful for all of the work that he put in. And like, I know like I can't even imagine in like a year what it's going to be like when like the whole learning process is over and we're just into like playing and like growing and exploring and experimenting. And he wrote back, bro, this is he goes, bro, this might be the best thing that ever happened to me outside of having my kids. And
Aw.
That's
I
wonderful.
was just like, man, I cried. Like he said, like I literally just started crying when I read that because it's just like such big words. It's like Marlon and I have been friends for a long time. He doesn't really know the Disco Biscuit scene. He's gotten to know it better and better through playing with Aaron and John and the Very Moon rock, their musical and being just more around us over the years. But him saying that joining this band might be the best thing that's ever happened to a guy who's had such amazing things happen to him. He played Madison Square Garden a couple months ago
It's
as a headlining act, and it's like
that's
he
amazing.
one of my dreams that I haven't accomplished yet, but I'm going to at some point. But one of my dreams, and he just accomplished it, and he's looking at being in my band as one of the best things that ever happened. If that doesn't make you take pause and have gratitude for what you have, then nothing will.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's awesome. I'm
I
super
feel like
pumped.
that's a good I feel like that's a good wrap up right
That's a
there.
good wrap. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So thank you so
I
much.
can't thank you enough.
Oh, so awesome meeting you guys. Thank
You
you.
too, man. Thank you
Yeah.
so very
Well,
much for
hopefully
everything.
we'll see you soon. See you out there on the road soon, man. So thank you so
Hell
much for
yeah.
joining us.
All
And
right.
all right, later, man.
Later. Thank you.